So, as HR professionals, we're often asked to juggle strategy, compliance, and people leadership. But what does it actually look like when HR truly leads with vision? Today, we're joined by John, an HR leader and strategist known for championing purpose driven work and elevating the human side of organizations. Over his career, John has led cross functional HR transformations, built high impact culture initiatives, and partnered with leaders to align people practices with organizational vision. John's passion lies in helping HR professionals see beyond processes and systems. You may hear us say HR like a boss today, but he leads with meaning, influence, and strategic impact. We're honored to have him on the Beyond HR podcast today.
Welcome to Beyond HR, the podcast for people-first leaders who know that HR is about more than checklists and compliance. I'm Paige, your co-host, and we will explore the real challenges shaping today's workplaces. From burnout and belonging to strategy and storytelling, we're bringing you honest conversations, practical insights, and a fresh take on what it means to lead with heart in the world of work. Before we dive into our episode, here's a quick word from our launch sponsor.
If you're feeling stretched thin, juggling big changes, emotional labor, and communication breakdowns, you're not alone. Hi everyone, I'm Dan Kaplan, founder of Bring Disc to Life, an online community for aspiring leaders and HR professionals. We give you the strategies, tools, and encouragement to communicate in ways that increase your influence while lowering your stress. Using DISC, the 5 behaviors, and mindfulness, you'll learn to stay grounded, read minds, and frame your message to influence others. We have live workshops every month, group coaching to unpack tough situations, and tons of easy-to-use scripts, strategies, and resources that you can apply right away without adding more to your plate. So come refuel with a community that gets you and wants to help you speak your truth in a way that's heard. Join us at confidentcommunicator.com and click on community. That's confidentcommunicator.com. Lead yourself and others will follow.
Welcome, John.
Paige and Will, thank you so much. I'm not sure you have the right John. I've heard that. I've not heard that introduction before. And wow, is that complimentary? Thank you so much. And I'm delighted to share a few moments with you, as well as thank you for your service and dedication and support to our wonderful profession.
Of course. We're so excited to have you. So to kick us off, tell us a little bit about who you are at your core. What drives your passion for the work that you do?
At the core, I'm here from a business perspective to make an impact. That's the primary purpose that I have in my life. That pivoted a handful of years ago after losing both of my parents in a very short period of time, and wanted to carry on their legacy, and felt that was the best, simplest phrase for me to keep myself focused. I sometimes have a short attention span. Don't hold that against me. If I promise to give you my full attention during the show, but there are times when I need to concentrate on staying focused. I think that's an occupational hazard as a serial entrepreneur and a content creator. That said, making an impact to me in the frame and the reference of business has been primarily centered on my support and love and admiration for the HR and payroll communities. Spent my entire career serving them, started off at ADP, then got into executive search, and then had my firm, Willery, for the last 15 years, which we're a professional services firm serving the HR, payroll, and HR technology communities. And in that, we do search work, we do vendor selection support of new HR systems, we do implementation optimizations and business transformations. And from my standpoint, I was given this unique gift many, many years ago to have clarity on the purpose of our firm, which is empowering people. And we have used that purpose statement as a guide for us on how we attract and retain our internal talent. The empowering of people starts with our team. And then ultimately, how can we do the same for our clients, our candidates, our consultants, and our communities? Everything that we do inside of our business must remain steadfast of that purpose of empowering people. And it just makes life a lot easier, similar to core values inside of a culture, which we have those too. But the purpose statement is paramount for me, quite frankly, because it just creates such clarity. At the same time, it weeds out people that maybe don't align to that. At the same time, it maintains and attracts people that want to serve and support people. At the end of the day, that is our purpose. That's my why, to make an impact by empowering people. And there's a whole lot more to that story, but I'm sure you'll probably ask me a bunch more questions, Paige and Will, along the way that I can dive into that a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you said clarity and purpose. It's probably two of my favorite words at this point in my life and career. And it's crazy how things change over time. You know, you talked about the really pivotal experience of losing both your parents, you know, within a very short amount of time. And I'm sure that definitely influenced what you do. And so, what would you say, kind of going backwards a little bit? So, what roles early in your career or even challenges, experiences influenced how you see HR today?
Great question. My very first entree into human resources was due to a poppy seed bagel, if you could believe that. My dad, have you ever talked about a poppy seed bagel before on your podcast before? Is this first?
No, can't say we have. This is the first,
Not
and
on
I'm
the
excited.
podcast. Yeah.
All right, I've got your.
Definitely have had people say that, I don't know about the drug test because I had some poppy seeds before I came in
you
here.
just ruined the punchline, Will. You just ruined the punchline. Gosh,
no.
My dad was a CEO of a hospital, and his head of HR came into his office. My dad tells the story. This is 50 years ago, it feels like. Anyway, he closes the door. A VP of HR comes into his office, closes the door. That's never good.
Yeah.
Dad says, who did something wrong? This is going to be juicy. He's used to these kind of conversations. And his VP of HR was white as a ghost and sweating. And my dad knew something was up. And my dad had recently taken a drug test and had poppy seed bagels and whatever. There's a Polish pastry as well. There's poppy seeds inside of that. I should know what that word is. I feel bad. I'm going to Google it here in a minute while I have a second so I can come up with the exact name, but they're filled with poppy seeds. And my dad failed his drug test failed for opiate, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the VP of HR says to my dad, I don't know what to do. And my dad says, I've never done a drug in my life. My dad drank, but never had done a drug in his life. And I think Dick Baus, who was his VP of HR, knew that as well. And my dad comes home and tells the story to our family. And then my mom immediately put it together that the poppy seeds have that in them that can show up in small traces. But he had eaten so much of them, so many of them, that it showed up on the drug test. And anyway, my dad took a hiatus from the poppy seed bagels and whatever the other sweet treat was, and retested, and everything was fine. But that was my first time I ever heard the word HR. And I just thought of, I don't know, controlling or worrying or trying to making a mountain out of a molehill. That's at least how my dad sold the story.
Yeah.
And fast forward the tape, I started my career off at ADP. And here's what I would say, Paige and Will, in regards to my thought of human resources and early entree into it. The people that do HR are incredible. That's all I can say. I spend a lot of time with a lot of different people. And I go to a lot of different conferences because of the book and keynote speaking and just work that we do for our clients. We work in all kinds of industries with all types of different business leaders and business professionals. But at the core, HR professionals are selfless, they're caring, they're kind, they're hardworking. They get into HR because they love people. Maybe they don't love people anymore after you're in HR for a period of time. I get that's an occupational hazard, but I just love how much they care. And that's what's attracted me to the profession. That's what's attracted me to continue to give as much as I can from the bottom of my heart to the community, whether it be through resources or services or support or a high five hand to slap or a shoulder to cry on if something comes up that isn't the greatest for my HR friends. I love how much they care. I think as a result of that causes some business related challenges because there are a lot of people in business, dare I say this, that don't care about people or don't care about people the same way that human resource professionals do. And I just encourage HR pros to continue being the voice for your people. If we in human resources are not putting our people first, then who is? And I think it's such a noble practice, such a noble profession. it has that business element along with that social community-based support that I think in order for you to do that, you got to be a pretty badass person and got to be committed and dedicated. And that's been the thing that I have been so fortunate to meet incredible people throughout my career, and at the foundation are just caring, selfless, kind people.
Wow.
And in your vision, your experience, how do you or how have you bridged that gap between understanding that we are people centric, but also there's a business to operate, and then how does that individual trying to bridge that gap keep themselves sane in the process?
It ain't easy, Will. It ain't easy. I'll just say it that way. It's the simplest analogy I have for it is a diplomat. A diplomat that's responsible for bringing two parties together, two opposing, different viewing parties, seeing the same thing in different ways. And as a diplomat, you have to navigate through conversations, communication, differences, heated discussions, varying views, all these things with the ultimate goal of bringing people together. And being a diplomat is not easy. And doing human resources effectively is not easy. But I have this simple phrase in my mind that I share all the time, is that anything in life that is worth a damn is difficult. And there's a reason why it's difficult. For those of us, we were talking about raising our kids in regards to this before we got on the show, how hard that is, but it's worth it. Starting a business is difficult to do. Being great at a particular vocation, whether it's golf or ballet, or you want to be the world's greatest Frisbee golfer ever, whatever it is, it takes dedication, time, energy, and effort. And I think there's an element to that, Will, that we as HR professionals, this is my opinion, it's assumed that we care for and will take care of our employees. That is assumed. But what is not assumed by the rest of the business community is that we're sound business leaders, that we can see the whole issue of what's going on here, just not the employee's view, but also this manager that's vying for their business or their budget or whatever the case is. You have to be able to see those two opposing views, and you have to have true empathy in the process. I think when you can do that, you can be diplomatic, you can be empathetic, you can effectively communicate your way through those challenges. To me, HR's job is to not get everyone to agree, but to get them to align. Can we just align on this is the path we're going down? I know it may be leaning more toward the business or more toward the employee, but we've decided this is the right choice. Can we align together? And to me, that's what doing HR is all about. And having that broader business mindset is a push that I have been on a crusade for the last 5 years of encouraging HR professionals to broaden their horizons outside of their sliver of HR duties and responsibilities.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting, though, that whenever we, in our roles to be an effective HR person, it's almost like we're forced to have to look at the business that way. But it's almost like, do we have that same expectation on the operations side for them to be a visionary within that realm as well, to look at where the people as part of that puzzle fit in to the processes and the systems and the SOPs and everything that's there to run the business, you know?
I do. Ultimately, we have to, as HR professionals, make sure that our people strategy aligns with the organizational strategy. And each one of our managers and leaders get that alignment. They understand how the interconnectivity, we can only go so far based upon a sound process or a honed technology or whatever it might be. You need people to innovate it, to make it better, to improve it, to administer it, whatever the case is. And I do think that we as HR professionals must lead by example. That's why I wrote a book called HR Like a Boss. If we can lead by example on how to balance those two elements, we're going to teach our business colleagues how to lean in more to what their employees are feeling, their voices, their opinions, because the front line is where all the work gets done and the great ideas are. At the same time, as HR professionals, we need to lean more into the business. One of the things I get these, rolled eyes, or maybe people go on their phone when I do my keynote, is we talk about having an understanding of the profitable components of our business, reading financial statements, understanding our balance sheet, understanding our profit and loss statements. And I get rolled eyes and I get, oh gosh, can we go to the next topic, John? Because I got into HR because I'm not into numbers, or I didn't like my accounting class, or whatever the case is. Well, I'm sorry to say there is no greater tool for you as a business professional to understand where your business is than by reading and understanding your financials. It's kind of like going to a basketball game and then not keeping score, and at the end saying, hey, who won? I don't know. It kind of felt like the red team was a little better for the beginning, and then the green team did better in the middle, and then they kind of battled out. I don't know who won.
Yeah.
And I am a big proponent and push for this. As a matter of fact, we built a whole program and course around it, PowerPoint presentation, financial acumen for HR professionals, that has been really well received. And I think that's one of the simplest places to go. The other one, which is I'm very proud of the fact that a lot of people have leaned into this idea. I'm a big emphatic rehire exercise every single year. Let's have conversations with our managers, our people managers, about if you had the chance to rehire your entire team today based upon what you know, would you do that? And can I, in human resources, by leveraging our payroll and finance friends, can we give you the cost analysis of what that employee, the investment the company makes in them, and are we getting value out from that, whether be they drive revenue, whether they drive down cost of goods sold, whether they help us manage our indirect expenses, whether they drive profitability, attach a number to that, and then attach that to their qualifications for the job. How are they doing on their KPIs? And then last but not least, are they a cultural fit? When we have that discussion to say, would you rehire roster of employees, and you go down and you have that fact-based conversation, all of a sudden your business colleagues will come to you and say, I've not done that before. And that was incredibly powerful. You help them navigate through a fact-based evaluation of their employee, as well as looking at the cultural and person that goes into considering if someone's the right type of fit for your organization. I love those kind of dialogues. I love that kind of encouragement. I don't know how that lands for two amazingly awesome HR professionals that are hosting this podcast, but you probably do those things every single year. And I'm just validating that exercise on your end.
For sure.
Yeah. I love that. I love that process. I've never thought about it kind of in that way. That's more broad picture, which is great, which is what we should be focusing on. I think sometimes people get a little bit stuck in, the phrases that you should be using that sound corporate-y, right? So kind of like skill gap analysis. Okay, well, what does that actually mean? So coming to them and saying it in the phrasing that you would, saying, hey, listen, I want to do an exercise with you. I want you to tell me, is the way that we are doing business right now in your area, do you love that? And likely they're probably going to say, well, I mean, it's working. Well, it's working. Okay. So let me talk to you about, what's working. And then we kind of go into okay, tell me what could be better, right? It's not a what's not working. It's a what could be better. And then going back and saying, well, this is what we actually can do. And that's exciting. Like that is organizational development at its finest. And that is one thing I can probably talk about all day long. It's something that I'm extremely passionate about, if you can't tell. But yeah, so I love that type of approach. So when you say two dedicated, incredible type of HR professionals here, my gosh, you hit the nail on the head.
What say you there, Will? Seems like you were nodding your head already. You're locked in on that concept.
Oh yeah, very much so, very much so. And I think it's always, I think for me, I tend to, if we were, vulnerability is a big key in our show. So I tend to lean a little more on the people side than the operations side, because I'm a firm believer that to be able to have a successful operation, you have to take care of your people. And a lot of times, especially in the fields that I'm in manufacturing. I've mainly worked in manufacturing and warehousing. Because of the quantity of folks that work in those industries, that tends to be a little bit of that loss in connectivity. So it's very easy to, for me, it's very easy to kind of try to push my operations folks and management teams to try to broaden their mental horizons on the people aspect of the business. So that's kind of why I brought that up earlier. So the business acumen aspect of it is always like, of course, I'm here as an HR person to support my business. Um, but we need to make sure that we're taking care of people the right way, and looking for those things, because I feel like as time is progressing, the hardest part of my job in HR has been, how do I take the hurt that gets brought to work from the people's lives outside of work? How do we find a way of motivating and connecting to that, so that we can better motivate them to be present at work, so that work can take care of itself? And that's definitely been something that has been a challenge, I think, for me for the last probably 4 or 5 years. Um, as also as I'm working on myself, because one of the things that Paige and I talk about all the time is, we're constantly looking for ways to better ourselves as individuals, heal ourselves, and be better human beings, which in turn helps us be more present to be better HR professionals. Being able to identify that in the workforce is, I know for myself, I'm very sensitive to that. So it's very easy to say, oh, this person is lazy, they don't want to work. Well, are they lazy, or is there something else that's showing itself as laziness that's happening behind the scenes that we might not be aware of, or might be disconnected with? Where can I, as an HR professional, help bridge that vision from that end to what the operation might see?
Well, I certainly appreciate your vulnerability. I know that is not easy. That's a tall task, especially if you have a business that's driving very hard on bottom line results or top line revenue or growth or whatever the case is. And there's a perception of what your employees think of what your employer thinks of them.
Yeah.
Which is, does my employer care about me? That's a really unique data point that's out there that suggests most employees don't think their employers care about them. And it's funny that you shared what you said, Will, because it reminds me of a few key points of my keynote. We talk about the foundational principles of HR Like a Boss are ownership and love. That's the baseline. That's the foundation. If you don't have those as an HR leader, if you don't take ownership and treat your job like it's your very own business, you don't love what you do, then you're likely going to struggle in doing your job. Simple as that. Secondarily, we go through the 5 pillars of the HR Like a Boss business plan: purpose, people, process, productivity, profit. And we roll through the specificities of how you as HR professionals can do those things better, to take a strategic view of your organization. And then the last area we focus on is you, the HR professional. How can we make sure you're taken care of first and foremost? What are the skills that you can develop, ensuring that you are being a great business leader that just so happens to practice in the field of human resources? And one of the slides I have, Will, is emotional intelligence. The other one I have is being present. I feel like you've been in my keynote before, which is hard to believe.
In heart.
It sounds like it. And I think the best, you didn't ask me for advice, but we're on a podcast, and gosh, sometimes you feel like you got to pontificate. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like at the end of the day, we have to take care of ourselves before we take care of others. That's all there is to it. And I have met way too many burned out HR and payroll professionals that have give, and they're not taking care of themselves, not getting enough sleep, stressed out, working too much screen time, too much fill in the blank of things that are not great for them. And then over time, it's you meet them and you can just see that they're tired. And I think ultimately we as HR professionals need to put on our oxygen mask first, in that cliche of when you get on an airline, all of us don't pay attention to that exercise, but God forbid if it ever happened, we would hopefully understand the first thing to do. And got to take care of ourselves. And there's some skills that we can, beyond just how we eat and exercise and sleep and all those things. Let's not diminish that as a criticality.
Of course.
But then in HR, I think one of the greatest skills that we can have to ensure that we're there for all the important meetings is to have a high degree of emotional intelligence, and to be able to navigate through unique conversations and be able to regulate our emotions and harmonize those with how we're really feeling. There's a tremendous author named Mark Brackett. He's a founding director of the Emotional Intelligence Institute at Yale University. And he wrote a book called Permission to Feel that changed my life, that I read right in 2020 in the midst of COVID. And it was super powerful. It led me to studying Brene Brown's work around vulnerability.
Yes.
And
Yep.
all that goes with that. And I use this reference all the time. I'm sure you guys looks like you're both Brene Brown fans. You've probably seen the cartoon of the empathetic creatures. I don't know if you've seen that before, with the
I
one
have.
yelling down like, "Hey, how's it down there? You doing okay?" And then the other one climbs the ladder down and just stands right next to the person or animal that's in need. And the simplest thing for me to say to you, Will, is when someone tells you something that's going on at their home that's a lot for you to process, just tell them thank you for sharing, and I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to say. They don't want you to fix it most times. They don't want, they just want you to listen to them. It's simple as that. And if you want to provide counsel, ask them if it's okay. Do you mind if I give you a piece of advice, or can I give you a hug or a high five, or what can I do to be there for you? If we do that, and then we can showcase that and share that exemplified behavior to our other managers, and you'll see that that employee responds to that in a way that suggests, Will and my company care for me. I'm going to navigate through this better because I have this support and resource. And then I'm going to be more committed to do my job because I know that my company cares for me. I'll ask you the question. When you're around someone you know that cares about you and loves you and appreciates you, you probably want to be there longer. You probably want to stay longer. You probably want to have more conversation. When you're around someone that could care less about you, is on their phone, isn't paying attention, and only cares about what they care about, how long are you going to spend time with them, and how's that going to feel? That's basically how employer cultures are structured, in my opinion. And you, Will, and Paige have to lead that, and all those listening at your employer. And don't fault those that don't understand it. Just lead by example and keep doing the right thing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love that. So for the listeners that may have missed what you were actually saying about that book, specifically about the way you can feel or something like that, can you repeat
Permission
that?
to feel. Permission. Yeah. Mark Brackett. It's MARC bracket BARCKETTT. He wrote a book in 2020 called Permission to Feel. It was right around the time that my parents had passed away, and right in the midst of COVID. I went to my therapist. Long story short, she recognized that I was void of emotion because I just didn't want to feel anything, because the feelings I had were all hurt and pain and loss and suffering. And she gave me permission, literally said the words to me in my session: I give you permission to feel. She gave me this feeling wheel. Maybe you've seen it before, all this kaleidoscope of colors, which is really amazing. And then she recommended I listen to a podcast, which was Brene Brown interviewing Mark Brackett. And she recommended that I buy his book. If you want to check it out, it's great. Just Google Mark Brackett, Brene Brown. It's probably one of the best podcasts I've ever listened to before. She was so excited to have him on, like a kid at a candy store kind of thing, because of the work he does and his technical expertise and the way that he communicates it. And the podcast was incredible. I never forget listening to it while I was painting the ceiling of my foyer that had gotten replaced. And I was literally crying as a 45-year-old grown man because of the emotions I was feeling in that moment. And it was God's gift to me to suggest I need to lean into my emotional intelligence. I need to do a better job of taking care of myself and loving me, which is a strange thing for a grown man to say. But as a result of that, I've been able to then write a book and get it published by SHRM and do a bunch of other cool stuff in my work. And at the same time, I feel way more comfortable in my shoes than I ever have in my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense. It's kind of like weight gets lifted off of not even just your shoulder, but your whole body. It's like, oh my God, I've had to do that for a long time. That was a great cry. And then you're like, okay, so why was I crying? And then you kind of dive deep. And for anybody listening, I mean, you had mentioned therapy, and that's super vulnerable for you to share. So thank you. Therapy is great. So even if you think you're okay, I'm telling you, therapy is great. They can talk to you about certain things, and you may catch things before they even happen, you know? So for anyone listening, therapy, I know there's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of stigma about therapy, stigma about feelings, but we are all human beings. So we kind of go back to that you have to take care of yourselves before you can pour into others,
Mhm.
because otherwise you're not going to be there to pour into others, right? You
Yeah.
can't. You
Think
can't
about when
physically.
think about when you're super stressed out in your life. We've all gone through it. Maybe you're feeling that way right now, one of the listeners is, and you just know your capacity for more inside of your cup that's already filled with stress is so shallow. There isn't space for another employee's issue or for you to deal
Mhm.
with the 20% increase that you got for your healthcare benefits, that all of a sudden it's your job to figure out how to find ways to reduce cost and not have
Right.
that significant impact into your profit and loss. Those things start to pile up and you just don't have room for them. And as a result, you don't give them your full best effort. You're not
Mhm.
present. You're not able to think strategically. And as a result of that, you're not giving your best work. And people can
Yep.
feel and see that. And I think it's so important for us in HR to take care of ourselves. What I have realized in all this, being empathetic is different than being sympathetic.
Mhm.
And it doesn't necessarily feel like I have to take on your feelings. I just have to be there next to you. I don't have
Yep.
to fix them. I just need to be present with you. And that's
Yeah.
a significantly less burden, in my opinion, if that makes sense. If somebody comes into you and they're like, you feel like you got to fix it, and all of a sudden you feel their sorrow and their emotions and everything. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but being empathetic and having that high degree of emotional intelligence has allowed me to have really unique conversations with people, build relationships with them, but not feel like I have to solve them unless they ask me to and give me that gift. And
Sure.
I think it's incredibly powerful and a major transformational shift for me in my adult life.
Yeah, and one of the conversations that I've had recently with my spouse is the fact that part of that being empathetic also starts with being empathetic towards ourselves. When we need to feel like we need to be heard and understood, and even earlier you made a comment about how it felt strange saying, almost in the context of a man, it felt strange saying that you were loving yourself. Even that narrative that we have to be able to break down, that in today's society we create this, like, men have to be tough and men have to be this and that, and we can't talk about our feelings. Like, divine masculinity, it revolves around the ability to be vulnerable and still hold that space to be able to go forward, and working through that emotion and working through that feeling. Once you identify what it is and why, where it's coming from and why it's there, weaponize it for good instead of weaponizing it for evil, you know.
Mhm.
100%. And I call BS to anyone that thinks that a man can't be vulnerable or have emotions or,
Mhm.
I grew up in a household, no disrespect to my parents, just the way they were raised and how I was raised
Yeah.
at that age, that was pretty commonplace. And I can tell you firsthand, being able to, that when I went through that exercise with my therapist, the first thing that she said that I needed to do the moment after therapy was get a blank piece of paper. Here's the feelings wheel. And every time you feel an emotion, write it down. Because I told her I'm not feeling emotions. And by the second or third day, I felt completely liberated because I had a long list of things that I were feeling. She said, write down everything. Don't show it to anyone else. It's okay if you're super angry, mad, upset, whatever the feeling is, just try to put a label on it. And that's a lot of Mark Brackett's work. And I think as a result of that, it has allowed me to back to Will's point, to love and care and be aligned with my own emotions first and foremost. As a result, then being able to do the same for other people. And there is absolutely no shame in that whatsoever. I'm a better human being now than I was in my
Yeah.
30s and 40s, clueless of my
Yeah.
own emotions and trying just to stay stoic and steady and a business guy.
Yeah.
And now I can be a business guy that gets how people are feeling. And
And
at the
being able
same
to
time,
share that with other people. I mean, there's been times that it's crazy. And I've been doing HR for almost 20 years now. In 2026, I'll be doing HR for 20 years. And the crazy part is that there's been so many different times. I've lost track of, like, the minute that one time I said a cuss word. Oh my God, HR just cussed. And I was like, yeah, like, just because I don't do it here doesn't mean that I don't do it. And they're like, well, you're always like so like peppy and always so happy. Like, yeah, because I need to be. But inside right now, I am cursing everybody up their wall because I don't understand why we're doing this. Why? What? Where's your head at? What are you thinking? And it's almost like as time progressed, the ability to have that conversation with folks and say, hey, guess what? Right now, I really want to scream at the top of my lungs, but I'm making the constant decision not to because it's not going to help the current situation. It doesn't mean that when I get in my car, I'm not hollering to a rock song on the way home in my drive, but being able to have that conversation of, we have feelings too. We may not always
Mhm.
show them because we probably shouldn't, but we're human, and it's okay.
Shouldn't.
There are days that I'm here and I might close my door and be inside my office a little longer than others. Those are probably the days that I'm not feeling people today, but that's okay because guess what? Tomorrow I get to hit that reset button. I work through my little process of finding my own inner zen, and then start over again.
It sounds like, well, you're following Mark's ruler method, and I'll just share it with you because this is his method for approaching emotional learning and the framework. I'm just for the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. I'm just reading off of what my phone says because I don't have it 100% memorized. But ruler, the acronym, stands for recognizing your emotions first, understanding them second, labeling them third. That was the exercise of going through, writing them down, expressing, and then the last one you said was regulating. And I'm not sure if
Mm.
you're old enough for that great rap song called Regulator. Yeah.
Yeah,
Remember that? So
Yep.
yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Regulate. There you go. All right,
Yeah.
Paige. I
yeah.
didn't think you were. You must have been listening to that when you were one or two. But if you
Yes,
can
I
do
mean, I
that,
do remember it.
yeah, if you can do that, if you think about it, that step, that's a lot to process. That's a lot to do in a short period of time. But the more that you do it and the more you practice it, the better you are. I was so fortunate recently to be at a private event for the speaker set, the writer speaker series in Cleveland, Ohio, and got the chance to meet Malcolm Gladwell, which was
Mm.
incredible. The author of Tipping Point and Blink and Outliers, and one of the greatest thinkers of our time. And it was fascinating to see. And the one thing I said to him is that I wrote my book because of Outliers, because he talked about the mastery concept of 10,000 hours. I don't know if you've heard this before, but he speaks in his book about anyone that's good at something, is a master, has likely spent at least 10,000 hours. Now, it's kind of funny when he was being interviewed, he said that was more of a metaphor. It wasn't necessarily a specific, you got to have 10,000 hours, but he told this story, which I'll share with you really quick because I thought it was fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about this chess champion, 13-year-old kid who was the best chess player in New York City. And he flew out there to see him. He's from Canada anyway, goes to New York, goes to this neighborhood, which apparently has all these outdoor, indoor chess, like the chess capital of the United States. And they play games inside and out. And this kid's just rolling around, 13 years old, just killing everybody. And Malcolm gets there, meets the kid, blah, 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 this, that, and the other, and asks him a few questions and says, where are you from? And where he said he was from was 25 miles away from the community that he lived in. Malcolm thought that the kid lived in this suburb of New York, but it was 25 miles away. And Malcolm did the math and said, that's about an hour and a half commute at around 3 p.m, because every day after school, his mom would drive him from school to this community, let his son play chess, her son play chess, and then 8 or 9 o'clock at night, hop back in the car and then drive home. And Malcolm was like, where's your mom? And the kid said, I don't know. She just drops me off. I play chess for 5 hours, and then we have a meetup point at 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And Malcolm said the story wasn't about the chess player. It was about the mom, because there's someone that gets you there in life, that helps you master things, drives you somewhere, supports you, gets you lessons or whatever you do, cares or has care or concern for you. And then you put that time in. The reason why I share that with you, we as human resource professionals need to put a tremendous amount of time into our own emotional intelligence, because if we are highly emotionally intelligent, you will be in the room when you know what goes down, and you will be in the room when strategy and critical decisions need to be made, because you're able to process a lot of things in a short period of time, and you're able to synthesize it and communicate in a way that's valuable. It adds value. It doesn't detract from it.
Yeah.
I pontificated.
No,
Malcolm
that's good.
Gladwell, Mark Brackett, you're welcome for the free
I know,
publicity on this
geez.
great podcast.
Love the free resources.
Before we wrap up, we want to give a special thank you to two of our sponsors. First, we'd like to once again thank our launch sponsor, the Bring Disc to Life community at confidentcommunicator.com, for their generous support. We also want to thank one of our founding supporter sponsors, Chain Solutions. They have believed in the Beyond HR podcast since day one, and we are proud to have them alongside us. Chain Solutions has been a trusted name and background screening for just over 20 years. They are accredited, use secure mobile first technology, and offer incredible responsive support with an average response time of just 18 minutes. If you're in need of a background screening partner who gets it right, fast and secure, Chain Solutions is one to know. And just for our listeners, they are waiving their usual $250 setup fee. Just mention you heard about them on the Beyond HR podcast. Thanks again to Chain Solutions for being a part of our journey.
I have two more questions for you, and one is one of my burning ones that I've been having as we're talking about, emotional intelligence, regulating ourselves, taking care of ourselves. So a piece of that I feel sometimes HR feels stuck or like even undervalued. You hear pretty often, HR doesn't care about the people, they only care about the business.
Yeah.
And you hear that pretty often. So if someone in HR feels stuck, undervalued, what would you suggest as maybe even one of their first steps towards changing that, or like changing that mindset or renewing themselves?
Thank you for asking, Paige. And I think it's a paradigm shift. You want my honest opinion, because a lot of human resource professionals I talk with have not made a concerted effort of building relationships with people inside of their business, because they're afraid if I build that relationship and I have to put them on a performance and improvement plan, or I have to maybe potentially let them go, that it won't feel good. I'd rather just have an arm's length relationship with people. And with an arm's length relationship, you don't get to the real nitty gritty stuff. My guess is Will wouldn't have been sharing this stuff on this show if he didn't know you, Paige, really well and wasn't confident in himself to be able to share it. And I think as a result of it, we as human resource professionals need to lean into the relationship building skills and abilities for us to be empathetic, have dialogue, talk to people about things that don't have anything to do with work, say hello to them, ask about their kids, heard about your grandkid, congratulations, whatever those personal aspects are. That way, when you're in a meeting, they're not concerned, why is Paige in this meeting from HR? Am I getting fired? I have a rapport with Paige. I know she knows me. I know she'll advocate for me. Doesn't mean at times Paige needs to make the tough decision that you're not the right fit for the business or we need to make some changes. But that I know firsthand that having relationships with people does or does not make the conversation any easier or harder if you have to have a difficult one, in my opinion. It's still tough. I just would rather have the rapport. I'd rather be a good human being. I'd rather encourage HR professionals to try to create that type of rapport with your colleagues outside of human resources in order for you to get to know them, get to know what makes them tick, what their challenges are, what they think about the business, what their department is, where they're going, et cetera. You just become so much more of a better business professional when you understand the business and the people that are responsible for it.
Mm.
Yeah. I love that. Honestly, it's one of those things. It's sometimes HR people, they do feel like they can't make the relationships because of the hard things. But I also feel like some of that is because of the culture of a company, right? I feel like it's not all of the reason, of course. I feel like it's our own internal thing. However, I'm blessed myself to be working for a great nonprofit, and nonprofits are so different than, ones that are for profit. And I'm blessed enough to work with a great group of people where I can be vulnerable. I am valued, and I feel this way because I do build the relationships. I'm very intentional in what I do. I want them to trust me. I don't want them to be afraid when I walk in the room. I don't want it to look scary, because you always think, oh, why is Paige coming over here? Oh, I'm just coming over to get some water and say hi. I mean, it's one of those things, hey, I'm a human too. Just remember, human resources, I'm a human and I'm not a robot. And so it's funny, I always tell people that, but it does resonate and it sticks with them. I think sometimes, I can't read people's minds, but people have told me, I remember you telling me that you're human, that you make mistakes, that you are not perfect, and that I'm not going to claim I'm perfect. And that really hits home, and I really appreciate that. And I'm just kind of thinking, oh, really? You appreciate that? Okay, that's just me. So I
Yeah.
feel like we need to be more of ourselves, and we talk about this a little bit about like taking that mask off in a sense. It's not Halloween all the time. We are recording on Halloween, by the way. However, it's not Halloween all the time. Take off the mask. It will be okay. You just have to know, some laws in the background, but you're a human being too. So,
And the
yeah.
crazy part about that page is it goes back to what I was saying. When you take care of your people, worrying about laws is the last thing on your mind because you're not having to worry about breaking the laws. Because guess what? You're doing things right by the people that are in your company and your business.
Yep.
And it's crazy because in part of my process of understanding HR, which is weird, again, 20 years later of starting the profession, I'm just now barely trying to understand HR as an entity, as a field. And I was doing some research as to where HR even started and where it came from. And it was a field that was created originally to make sure that companies were not violating laws. That was strictly what it was. Around the time of unionizing and all this crazy stuff that was happening behind the scenes in the labor market, all of a sudden we're like, well, hey, we need to make sure that the organizations, the businesses are operating the right way as this movement of employee rights is growing. Let's build an
Mhm.
entity and put people there so that they can be the safeguard for the company. But the craziness is that the field has dramatically and drastically just morphed into something bigger and different, yet we're still trying to hold it in the same box and operate in the same box, even though I do want to be fair to those of us that are trying to redefine it and change it. Because I do believe that there's more and more of us, and will be more and more of us that are trying to change and redefine what it means to be in HR and in the people profession. Um, but that's the stigma, especially in smaller towns, smaller companies, smaller mindset people that we still have to continue to fight is that we're no longer just a field of compliance. There's so many more different complexities to it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Breaking those perceptions is going to takes a long time. It's systemic in some regards, if that's what the foundational principles of human resources and the idea of personnel was back 100 years ago, whatever that timeline is. I think it's obviously pivoted significantly, as you both have mentioned. And probably one of the coolest exercises I had in writing my book is we showcased people that were doing amazingly awesome HR to complement and override the ideas that I shared in the book. And at the end, the make an impact section, we interviewed people that were part of a company that those HR leaders were a part of as well. And we had a handful or so of their customers, their other employees, and non HR functions that we interviewed and said, tell me what you think of Chris. Tell me what you think of Lauren, fill in the blank. And I'll never forget one of the people had suggested they stopped in their tracks after about 3 months of working with this one individual that we had showcased in our book. And he went back into the meeting, went back into his office and said, Chris, I got to tell you something. You are unlike any other HR professional I've ever worked with in my career. And I mean that in the greatest way possible.
Mm.
And
Oh.
that sounds strange because the perception, no offense, Paige and Will, is Toby
Yep.
from The Office or
Oh
something
yeah.
worse.
Oh yeah.
Something worse. And I've been looking for Toby from The Office in my, I haven't found an HR professional that does HR like Toby.
And
But
you know
that's
and the crazy thing is, and this is funny how we always say that the movie industry perpetuates different stereotypes. I've yet to find a single TV show or movie that showcases HR in the right light.
It's
It is
always sad.
always, and Toby is like, I feel like for Toby, he's like probably one of the better perceptions that I've seen in,
which
in
is
this position.
sad.
Yeah,
which is
which is
sad.
horrible because I actually recently I was watching it's a movie with Anne Hathaway where it's based on the WeWork the whole fiasco behind WeWork back I don't know a decade ago, and the HR person in that organization literally was painted as a almost like a pushover. Like they would go into her office and say, "I want this person fired," and then she'd be like, "Why?" It's like, they're not a good fit. And then she would just be like, okay, when do you want them to be gone by? And I'm like, what the heck? There's no pushback, no question, no nothing. It was just like, okay, cool, let's write it off. But yeah, we're having to fight that perception everywhere, including TV and movies.
Oh my
Like I
gosh.
said, anything in life that is worth a damn is difficult. You
Yep,
signed up for it and you're still in it, Will, 20 years later. Let's keep making the most of it.
that's
I love
right.
your energy and your passion for it. It's great.
That's right.
Yeah. And maybe this will be your closer to what you just said. But if listeners could take away one powerful insight, just overall, it doesn't even have to be something we talked about today, but something that could inspire them to live or work with more purpose, what would that be?
Mm. Well, I'm sorry to answer your question using one of the words that you used in your question. I actually am working on a couple other manuscripts. We'll be launching Payroll Like a Boss on April 28th, 2026.
Awesome.
It's a follow-up to HR Like a Boss. I'm co-writing it with a colleague of mine, Tammy Gillenwater, who aspired to do thought leadership and then write a book. And then can I help her? And can we call it Payroll Like a Boss? We're launching it on Global Payroll Week, and we have a lot of fancy, cool things going. We'll be at the largest payroll company in the world's user conference to launch it as well, which is super great.
Awesome.
I then am also working on a manuscript called Purpose is Paramount. And here's why that's so important to me, kind of a broad-based look at how we have purpose in our life, how we have purpose at our work, and how we have it in our community, and alignment of that purpose statement across all three places. That's why when you asked me the first question, it was to make an impact. That is my very simple purpose statement. And my encouragement to everyone on this show, Will and Paige, as well as those listening, is to define your individual purpose. What is that? It will evolve about 7 times in your adult life. Those things happen because you have seasons of change, graduating college, find a job, make money. That's my purpose. All of a sudden, I want to date this person. I want to get married. And then purpose becomes have a baby, as an example, and then take care of baby, and so on. And those things all change over time. But be clear about what your purpose is. Tell others what it is. And then the extra credit assignment is do the same thing for your business. My guess is Paige's mission statement at her nonprofit is front and center within how they do business and how they treat people. What I love about for-profits is that they attacked a societal issue and then built a business around it. My encouragement to for-profit companies, for those that were started by money-hungry entrepreneurs that want to make money and usually can't work for someone else, and all of a sudden they make a bunch of money and realize, is this really it? Is this what life is all about? Look at Warren Buffett, look at Bill Gates. They're spending all the remainder of their life giving away their empire and giving away their billions of dollars to societal issues, to attack societal issues. And as a result of that, I cannot encourage you enough. We write about it in the book. Have a purpose, be committed to it. 4 words or less is the preference, because if it's 4 words or less, we can remember it. And it's something universal that we can wrap our arms around. And the idea of having purpose in our life, in our work, in our community will allow us to be more grounded and humble and clear human beings. And it makes life so much simpler when you have tough decisions to make, or people that come into your life, or job opportunities that do they align with my purpose? And it should be a very clear yes or no. And if it's a yes, run toward it. If it's a no, wonder why not. Don't run away from it possibly, but just inquire and be inquisitive about it. That would be my recommendation.
I love that.
That's very awesome.
And you already shared all of your upcoming projects, initiatives. So tell us a little bit about where listeners can actually connect with you.
Probably easiest way is to find me on LinkedIn. I will poke a little fun at our host. Paige was so kind. She did not want to pronounce my last name because it is a mouthful, 11 letters. I was just John, which is great. I love it so much. I have a joke, which I shared with them. They asked me how to pronounce my name. I say it's John, not Bernatovicz, which is 11 different letters in the alphabet, which is a handful. But you can follow me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way for us to connect. At the same time, you can also learn a ton about us at hrlikeaboss.com. I'd be happy for everyone to join our HR Like a Boss community. It's free. We give out 25 free SHRM and HRCI PDCs every year as a part of my podcast and the live sessions that we have. And then we also are having a purpose inside of the HR Like a Boss community, which is to empower future leaders by having a scholarship program for graduating seniors getting the degree in human resources. We put them through a SHRM study group, create that community and fellowship. And then we've had almost 60 students pass and get their SHRM certification thanks to HR Like a Boss. So find me that way, HR Like a Boss, or you can find me on LinkedIn, or if you want to, it's John, John, at Willery, WILLORY.com.
Awesome.
Great. Well, thanks, John, for your time today. And
Definitely.
I'm still not
Thank
going
you
to
so much.
pronounce your last name because I am still worried about that. Bernatovicz?
You got it.
You
Just
did
Yes.
it. You did it.
Yes.
Why are you
I
so
did
surprised?
it. That I don't know. I surprise myself sometimes. But
Before
yeah,
we head
thanks so
off, I
much
just
for
want to say, before I head off, thank
Yeah.
you, Paige and Will. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for giving HR professionals a platform to share their stories. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep being passionate about it. You are thought leaders. You are influencers. You are making the world a better place. And I can tell you this, you may not realize it because every day you might not have somebody tell you something about it, but people are paying attention to what you're doing, and keep at it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate
Amazing.
that.
Thank you so much. We will make an impact just like you do.
There we go.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond HR podcast. We hope today's episode inspired you to reflect and grow in your own HR journey. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Beyond HR Podcast. If you found value here, share it with your fellow HR professionals. Until next time, keep making an impact on yourself.